Joining me now is Perry Wong. He's a managing director at the Milken Institute, an economic think tank. Perry, slower economic recovery for China in July, somewhat expected, but why aren't we seeing better numbers with some of the easing we're seeing with the COVID restrictions in China? And what is your outlook for the rest of the year?
I think there are two primary reasons for a little bit disappointed figures in July. One, I think the policy that put in recently, it would take some time to go through the system. So it's not going to be 1 month. It sometimes can take up to 3 to 4 months to kick in. And that's one major reason. And the second reason is that since the last policy help, we have seen regions that get into the COVID case issue. So there are lockdowns, and this stop and go mode is not helping the private sector to invest. And without investments, job markets will very unlikely to improve very little, if not going down. And also the retail sales is not going to be steady. I think the recent numbers, sets of figures actually show those two effects.
Well, China's central bank just cut interest rates. Could we see more aggressive cuts in the coming months? And talk to us about the strategy here when we see other central banks around the world actually raising interest rates.
I think China is in slightly different cycle than the European or the American economies, or actually all other major economies. So the Chinese economy doesn't have to deal with the CPI issue or the price inflation. So the Chinese CPI has been rather steady. I think it's actually in the range where it should be, or I think the government officials are comfortable with. So with that, I think it's a blessing. So that would imply the Chinese central bank, when there is a need, they can actually lower the rates a bit to help the economy. But the question here, I think, is that whether the monetary policy can be effective as the way that the banker sees it, is that the demand side is still very weak. So the money, you can pump money into the system, but without certainties, or at least reduce uncertainties of this lockdown, this go and lockdown mode, and the private sector are not going to invest a lot of money in. And that's a key issue, I think, for not just in China, but China is very obvious at this moment, since other economies around the world have made a trade-off between COVID cases, and economic growth. So China is probably one of the few major economies that still exercises zero case or dynamic zero case lockdown. So that actually, we'll see how it play out. But I would assume somewhere down the line, other than the central bank, I think the government have to do another playbook to see if they can help the economy a little bit more by providing more certainty on how they are going to lock down districts, not the city, and also how to track cases better. I think those are the two things that the Chinese government have to go through.
All right, Perry Wong, we appreciate your insight. Thank you so much for joining us from Hong Kong.